Hello again everybody, I'm Phil Liggett standing in the square at Compiègne bringing you today's coverage of the famous queen of the classics from Paris to Roubaix. We're in the square at Compiègne where the race has started these past few years, some 80 kilometres, 50 miles north of Paris. 1990 is a race that everybody still talks about, when the race was won by just a centimetre. Let's have a look at that.
Wampers looks content, even as last year's winner here, to help Eddie Planker take the sprint. Bauer is in the back of the group, but Van Hooijdonk goes for a long one. He's the least likely to win the sprint. Bauer gets his wheel, a good piece of riding by Steve Bauer. Planker tries to come on him too, but look at this ride now by Van Hooijdonk, goes high, opens the door to Steve Bauer. Bauer comes on the inside, and it looks as though Steve Bauer's going to get that first classic victory on the line. They are almost together, and you know Eddie Planker was right on him on the line. We'll have to look at that again, but there was nothing in it at all.
In 1991, the French came up with the first of two straight victories, and you know, they haven't won too many races since the World Wars. Now let's have a look how Marc Madiot did it. He's still around 10 kilometres to go to the finish. It's quite possible now, because the whole field is spread-eagled over the road behind him. And now comes the moment of the jersey straightening, possibly the two-arm salute. Marc Madiot is back in the big time. Well, sadly, Marc Madiot is injured today and won't ride for the Subaru Montgomery team, a team from America making their first appearance in Paris-Roubaix, and we wish them well. Last year, though, the grand old man, Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, until last year, he twice finished second in this race and once fourth. Then he got the big one. So what a great feeling for Duclos-Lassalle. He's racing for the win, and he can see the tail of the rider who will take second place, Olaf Ludwig of Germany. And now all that remains for Duclos is the two-handed salute. He's going to do it right behind Olaf Ludwig, who looks over his shoulder. And this has been one of the most memorable victories in Paris-Roubaix. Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle since 1970. Well, Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle is now approaching 40 years of age and is still the #1 favourite for France. But what about the Americans? Greg LeMond is back. He had a great Tour of Flanders. It does appear, although he's refining his old form. Greg, before you ride off, the form looks as though it's coming good after a great Tour of Flanders.
Oh, a great Tour of Flanders. Considering how bad I was at the start of the season, it's good. But no, I feel good, especially on the flats. I mean, today's flat. So
I mean, nobody can really look forward to Paris-Roubaix, can they?
Oh, I look forward to it. Yeah, it's the most exciting race of the season, really, for one day, and it's a lot of adventure in it. You hope you finish. You hope you don't crash. That's your main goal. But then if you don't crash, you don't flat, then you hope to do well.
And as they entered the forest of Arenberg after 96 miles covered, 13 of them held a lead of just over 1 minute. 137 starters, and amongst these 13 frontrunners was the champion of Belgium, Yohave Museo, now riding for the Italian MGB team. He had all of his strong teammates around him: Franco Ballerini, Wilfried Peters and Mario Cipollini, the most feared sprinter of them all. From Motorola there was the British champion Sean Yates, and from Germany came Olaf Ludwig, the former Olympic champion back in Seoul in 1988. At the head of the field as they charged over the cobblestones of the forest of Arenberg, it was Wilfried Peters setting the pace in favour of his teammate Cipollini in third slot, and dodging around the Pave and the fields at the back there, the champion of Belgium, Yohave Museo. Peters had tried to pick the smoothest road possible through the forest. He was being followed by Adrie van der Poel. Cipollini was in third place. Peter de Klerk, not knowing quite where to ride, was riding in fourth slot. Others riders in this breakaway were Thierry Marie of France, Marc Sergeant of the Novomai team, and his teammate Wilfried Nelissen. Massimo Girotto was here, so too Frans Masson from the Word Perfect team. A marvellous crowd has turned out for this first vantage point of the 1993 event. As soon as the riders pass by, they'll be in the cars and racing down the freeway, heading for the next point. It was a fine piece of pacemaking by Wilfried Peters. He was now trying to establish his front group, which had broken away approaching the city of Valenciennes. Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, the winner last year, was in big trouble. He'd punctured and crashed on the first set of cobblestones at Troisville. So too had Greg LeMond, and they were behind the race at the moment. The spare wheels being waved at the riders. Well, that's against the rules here in the forest. You must take all spare material from the following cars. But who cares if you get into big trouble in the forest? You will take anybody's bike wheel. Peter set a marvellous pace, while at the back of the field, French hope Frédéric Moncassin was celebrating with a puncture. Normally the forest of Arenberg, there is no wheel traffic allowed. You simply come here, leave your car and enjoy the tranquility of the place. Not so when Paris-Roubaix comes by. This was the chase group being led by Jelle Nijdam. They were feared that their man up front for the Word Perfect team, Frans Maassen, wasn't the man for the day's victory. So they were trying now to draw the sting of the bunch and hopefully project Edwin van Hooijdonk up in that front group. It was still Peters setting the pace as they headed toward the end of the forest. They couldn't see the end, the crowd was too dense. Adrie van der Poel seeming to find a new pair of legs this year, having signed now for an Italian team. Van der Poel is 33 years of age, a former yellow jersey wearer of the Tour de France and the classic winner. Peters in trouble at the end of the forest, a puncture for him, but the race will reform at the front with the 13 riders. When Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, last year's winner, had realised that most of the favourites in this year's race had flown, he quickly formed a chasing group of 7 riders at around 112 miles covered. Duclos-Lassalle was in the group with André Schmiel, but he was also taking up in fact 2 teammates of the most feared team in this race, of Ballerini, Museo and Cipollini. But also in this leading group was Edwin van Hooijdonk, one of the real Belgian favourites for victory in this year's event. Van Hooijdonk, Jelle Nijdam. Word Perfect had got 2 men now they really fancied for final victory in the chase group. Also in this group was Nico Verhoeven, Duclos-Lassalle, and then the MGB boys. Number 45 there was André Schmiel. At the back of the race was Ludwig Willems. The other man was Benjamin van Itterbeek. Race director Jean-Marie Leblanc was right there when he saw the French favourite Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle lead the charge of 7 riders up towards the 13 escapees. Jelle Nijdam, Edwin van Hooijdonk, Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, Ludwig Willems, Nico Verhoeven, Ben van Itterbeek and André Schmiel. They were the 7 men who'd realised all of the favourites had slipped away as they had approached the forest of Arenberg. There would very shortly be 20 riders in the lead, and the rest of the race were over 1.5 minutes behind, with a lot of racing to do now to catch up with these 20. So sit back and enjoy now the live action from Paris-Roubaix as I saw it on the day. Well, what an unusual Paris-Roubaix this is turning out to be. 55 kilometres remaining, that's about 34 miles to the finish. We're in the town of Tshh, and still plenty of bad roads to come. This race, which started back in 1903, it's a long time since it projected at the front just about every favourite in the buck. And the man who almost missed the train, Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, he's joined as well. 20 riders, including the Motorola British champion Sean Yates, who is a man for Paris-Roubaix. He rode so well last year to finish 13th, but they must be very, very worried by the presence of so many riders from the Italian GB-MG Malefico team. Johan Museo, the hot favourite to win, having just won the Tour of Flanders. And when you are the reigning champion of Belgium, that really is the classic to win on home soil. He's now in the selection here. The main field haven't given up. We're not seeing too much of them either. They're over 1.5 minutes back. We must apologise again for the occasional breakup in the picture. This is due to the live pictures and the links to the helicopters. The camera's taking quite a battering on the cobblestones as we now enter the cobblestones at Tshh. Just over 2 kilometres, 2,000 metres. And as usual, the riders at the front turn on the power once they hit these cobblestones. It always reminds me of the great British horse race, the Grand National, watching Paris-Roubaix, because the riders hit the cobblestones like they're fences. If they fall off, they're just left behind. Well, this is one of the stretches of cobblestones that the crowd basically seems to have ignored. They've gone on to the more famous stretches towards the end. Adrie van der Poel has been the rider doing most of the racing over these cobblestones. There is in fact a prize for the king of the Pave, but it's Benjamin van Itterbeek who's taken the advantage here. Now this is something of a surprise. Van Itterbeek is always seen as the good kermesse rider. That's the riders who stay in Belgium and ride those one-day races and earn plenty of local publicity. But those much closer to him do say he is a vastly underrated rider, and if he trained properly, he could be a classic winner. Well, maybe he's trained properly today, because he's setting the pace here as we run alongside the main road between Paris and Brussels. There's his FICP World Ranking, number 311, which isn't bad when you think there are more than 1,000 riders now ranked in the world. And 50 seconds to chase group, so the main field far from out of it yet. That's a small group that's trying to come up. It contains Johan Capio, former champion of Belgium, trying to bridge the gap. Rolf Aldag is there, a rider who we know well in the United States. He staged victories in the Tour du Pont. And there's Adrie van der Poel, 33 years of age, now on an Italian team and riding better than ever. Spectacular crash by Adrie van der Poel in this year's World Cyclocross Championships. He tried to jump a ditch on his bike, he didn't quite make it, fell down the ditch, and then parted company with his bike for something like 25 metres. Well, we were talking about that at the start this morning. Van der Poel was laughing and joking, but he looks like he's come here with serious intent today. He's leading the classification for the King of the Pave, having won most of the sectors today. There are 22 of them, and the first 3 riders leaving each section score points. The man with the most points by the end of the 22 sections will win the prize. And trouble at the back here. But I must say that the riders who have problems today are not going to get back onto this train at the front. This rider not detached from the lead group, in fact, he's detached from the second group. And now it looks like that the Itterbeek is still going clear. They haven't picked him up, and Van der Poel has tried. The Belgians will be a little bit surprised to see this forceful riding by Benjamin van Itterbeek. Van der Poel setting the pace. Yohave, Museo, the champion of Belgium, in 3rd place. Marc Sergeant in 2nd place. A vastly underrated rider. Marc Sergeant, been a professional now for 11 years. Started out back in 1980 when he was the schoolboy champion of Belgium. Well, since then he's been the full professional champion of Belgium. Well, I can't believe that Van Itterbeek is planning a sortie here all the way to Roubaix. I think he would like to see 1 or 2 riders catch up. He wants to split up this big field. The man who's gone from this leading breakaway just before you joined us was Mario Cipollini. He punctured, aptly enough, on the cobblestones at the Chemin des Abattoir, and he's now chasing behind and seemingly losing ground. And that might have given Van Itterbeek a little bit of confidence with the top sprinter out of this front group. With the big danger, Franco Ballerini, who was the journalist's favourite today, he's in this lead group, so too Yohave, Museo, and of course let's not forget Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, last year's winner. Van Itterbeek is making ground as we've come back onto a smoother road. The great thing about Paris-Roubaix, you stay on these narrow roads, it does favour the breakaways because you're very quickly out of sight of the chase groups. There are still 7 sections of Pave to come, and they'll total 14.5 kilometres. That's about 8 miles. And holes forming here. Sean Yates caught a little bit in no man's land, trying to grab a wheel at the front. There he is, wearing his colours, the champion of Great Britain. We're now heading up to Seclin, the next stretch of Pave. She's going to rattle their bones for the best part of 4 kilometres. This has been a great Paris-Roubaix this year, because the favourites made their move so early on that we'd started off with a long breakaway by Christian Chauvet. whose small French team Chazal issued a number of attacks before Roubaix finally got clear. He was caught soon after the cobblestone started at Troisville, and it was there where Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle in fact punctured and crashed at the same time. It's been a hard day for him to get up to the leaders. Sorry about the picture breakup, but as I say, it is the problem with our links up to the helicopter. Well, the only information we have on Greg LeMond, who started reasonably confident this morning, is that he too had a lot of trouble around the same time as Duclos-Lassalle. In fact, a number of the GAN team were left trailing at the back, and LeMond is now in the main field. This has been a super attack by Benjamin Van Itterbeek, but he hasn't got what he wanted, and that was a little bit of help up here. The group is holding him, letting him fry a little bit. And still the best part of 50 kilometres to go, some 31 miles to the finish. It's a long way. Van Itterbeek looking over his shoulder, that's always a sign, please come and help me. A sign that the rider hasn't the confidence, he can go all the way to the line. He wants somebody to back him up. And he's gone out onto wider roads, which won't help either right now. Colstrop team came over to the Tour of Britain milk race last year, finished in second and third place, and had the race won in fact in the last 4 miles of the event, and they lost it by 25 seconds. There's the gap, 10 seconds, that's back to Cipollini, I think, who's hanging out there. 23 seconds back to a small chasing group containing Johan Capio and Rolf Aldag. The rest of the race is falling back. Over 2.5 minutes to what's left of the main field. The small field started this morning, in fact only 137 riders, because I think in Paris-Roubaix the riders really assess their chances before they actually say yes, we're going to ride, because they simply don't want to bash themselves over the cobblestones, which is a point that Bernard Hinault once made, 5 times winner of the Tour de France. Bernard Hinault won this race back in 1981, just to tell the organisation you'd never see him again because the race was inhuman. Well, I can tell you now that Bernard Hinault is part of the organisation that promotes this very inhuman race. Very nice compact pedalling style of Van Itterbeek. Like all Belgian riders, sits very forward on the saddle. 46th in Paris-Roubaix back in 1985. This is Adrie van der Poel, who's been a regular rider in Paris-Roubaix, once had a 3rd place finish, and it looks like he's got clear of the field. He's ridden a tremendously active race today. Turned pro back in 1981. In 1987 he was commanding a salary of $300,000 a year, which in 1987 was a fair salary before Greg LeMond came along and turned it into around about $1 million a year for the top pro bike riders. Van der Poel was once the highest paid rider in Holland, and you can see why. Came to the fore back in 1981 when he pulled on the white jersey of leader of the Paris-Nice race. Then he finished second in Flèche Wallonne, a race which is still to come. It's 3 days away from Paris-Roubaix. And it looks as though Adrie van der Poel might well pick up Benjamin Van Itterbeek, who's just gone up round that corner there. One of the biggest disappointments for Adrie was when he took the silver medal in the 1983 World Championships. But since then, happier days have come his way, like a win in Paris-Brussels and probably the finest win of his when he won the Tour of Flanders in 1986. And the compact working group trying to rectify things. This is Moto 3 and this is the chase group trying to get up. Andre Schmil at the front of this group. Another of the MGB team. I think they've got most of their team up in the action today. Each team fielding 8 riders. I think the only rider I've not seen in the action from MGB is Eros Poele. It's almost as if Van Itterbeek feels more at home on the cobblestones. There are plenty of them in Belgium still. Any of you young amateurs watching this who've ever visited Belgium and ridden an amateur race, you usually find yourself crashing over cobblestones round the back streets. of some little Belgian town. The fear that one day all of these cobblestones will be covered over with tarmac doesn't bear thinking about, because the day that happens, Paris-Roubaix will cease to exist. But thankfully, the race more popular than ever, and the areas here, the Nord-Pas-de-Calais, and the area around this section of France, and Roubaix, Valenciennes, Saint-Quentin, all of the towns here willing to try and preserve at least small sections of this bad road to keep this race alive into the next century. The first race in 1896 was won by Fischer. Joseph Fischer of Germany, but in those days they were paced by bicycles. This group is trying to reform at the front. The 20 riders have been spread-eagled a little bit since the Punctured to Cipollini, but basically the same names are here. Nobody has crossed the gap from the original 20 riders. And Yohave Museo, there he is at the right of our picture, hasn't done too much at all. He's watched every move, he's marshalled the moves well, he's made sure he hasn't been too far off the pace. This is Olaf Ludwig now driving along. It's an awful shame the former East German wasn't able to turn professional until he was almost 30 years of age. He holds the World Cup. He's made such an impression, starting this season as 5th in the world rankings position. But he really would have done so much more had he been able to turn professional around 24, 25 years of age. Now he's driving the train, Ballerini on his wheel. They're trying to split this breakaway up. Ludwig must feel a little bit claustrophobic in there with Ballerini and Yohave Museo in that group. Two riders with the equal qualities of making the long attack or winning the sprint. And the gap is closing down. Van der Poel has not yet rejoined Benjamin Van Itterbeek at the head of affairs. It just goes to show, doesn't it, just how good Van Itterbeek is going here. Still a gap of 12 seconds. Van Itterbeek took the time to look over his shoulder now. He might want to ease off a little bit, because 2 will go better than 1. There's the lone leader, riding as relaxed as he can on top of the... In fact, it looks to me as though he is easing back and waiting for the arrival of Van der Poel. His gears a little bit lower than one would expect over the cobblestones. They tend to ride big gears. They drive over the stones, pick out the best route. Well, the riders will be very relieved the rain hasn't come. It's a bit disappointing for the spectators and indeed the television commentators, because a Paris-Roubaix is always said to be a real Paris-Roubaix when the riders look like coal miners and the water on the road is about 2 or 3 inches deep. End of sector 7 and a second place for Van der Poel out of that section, which will keep him on the leaderboard in the race for the big cobblestone and the first prize in the Kingdom of Pave. Van der Poel has been in the thick of the action since this breakaway formed. He was one of the key men that formed the attack of 13 riders that finally swept up Christian Chauvet, and has also blown him away, I'm afraid to say. And now it looks as though Van Itterbeek is going to be joined. There we are, he spotted him, so he'll wait for him and then he'll find his tempo, and 2 riders could well slip away here. A little drink, as so often happens when a rider catches his quarry. A few moments of relaxation before they settle into the serious business now of holding off the remnants of this 20-man breakaway. Well, this has to be one of the most tortuous routes possible to Roubaix from the town of Compiègne. Same towns which have now become synonymous with Paris-Roubaix welcome this race every year. The route more or less settled down, doesn't change too much at all now, since it's been starting at Compiègne since the mid-80s. And if you ever get the chance, by the way, to come over here and watch Paris-Roubaix, Compiègne is about 80 kilometres, 50 miles north of Paris, and the night before the big professionals roll out of town, there's always a circuit race for amateurs which goes on for a couple of hours, and it's a great evening's entertainment. Edwin van Hooijdonk looking over his shoulder. So many riders over the years who can call themselves Mr. Paris-Roubaix, but Van Hooijdonk shot into the top line when he finished 5th in this race, one of his first professional races. There's the composition of this new group, but still the original names projected. Herman Frison is the only rider who's joined us here after a hard chase from the back. And Van der Poel just checking over to see, a little group, and that's it. He's assessing who's in it, and he's not going to try and hang out now. Neither is Van Itterbeek, because they come together. And there's the men who've joined them. Ludwig, Duclos, Lasalle, Frison, Van Hooijdonk, Sergeant, Museo and Ballerini. Very neat little group indeed. 9 riders out in front. Well, Cipollini is reported to have abandoned the race. He had his chance today for sure, but he was a victim of a puncture. Ludwig Willems, who was in this breakaway too, he had a very nasty fall and hurt his left shoulder. He also has abandoned, so things haven't gone too well. André Chemin, another MG rider, has also fallen. They were all in the action up here earlier on. They've lost their places because of bad luck, and that's reduced the favourites there, because 3 of the MG boys have gone from this leading group because of bad luck. Museo is still here, so too is Ballerini. And as I said this morning in the French newspaper L'Equipe, it was the journalists who have voted 5 stars for Ballerini as the favourite along with Museo. That's Herman Frison at the back of Belgium, 105. He is on the same team managed by Jean-Luc Vandenbroek. As we head on to sector 6 on the Pave. Pont Thibault, just 1.5 kilometres this one. Frison sitting at the back, while it's again Van der Poel searching for the points at the front. But Museo has got his wheel now. This quietly spoken man who say he didn't have to be a professional bike rider because his family is reasonably well placed in life. They own a garage. His father was briefly a professional cyclist and found it was a little bit too hard. He didn't want Johan to become a pro bike rider, and Johan promised he'd just give it a try. Well, what a rider he's turned out to be. Now the champion of Belgium, and only a week ago the winner of the Tour of Flanders, and now right in the driving seat here in Paris-Roubaix. Last Belgian to win was Eddie Plankett, and you may well have seen that tape on FCV, that superb finish by a centimetre between Steve Bauer and Eddie Plankett. What a finish that was. Sean Yates, they call him the Animal. What a superb bike rider. Such an unselfish cyclist. That's why he's never won so many cycle races. And he's said now to be postponing his retirement this year because he is so impressed with Lance Armstrong, the new rider on the Motorola team, that he wants to stay on 1 more year and impart all of his experience to Lance and hope that he will go on to be a champion. Again, the cobbles breaking up this group. This is the return of a chase group, which includes Yellow Nidam, and it might well get back, so they're reforming again. What a superb battle this is over the roads here of northern France. The cars, as so often happens, will be trapped between these two groups. The riders won't complain because it'll be a chance to nip through the cars and back up to the leaders. But there really is nowhere those vehicles can go in Paris-Roubaix when you're on the cobblestones. You can find yourself in a box. They're the leaders. Gilbert, Duclos, Lasalle driving along there. In 3rd place, I think he is at the moment. What a remarkable rider. The oldest man to win Paris-Roubaix 1 year ago, which ranked him, I think it was 4th in the world as the fourth oldest winner of a classic race. The oldest is Yohave. And that little group is getting back. So the Word Perfect boys haven't had a great day out today of Jan Ross. New sponsors, Jan anxious that they get a win in a classic race. They're coming up. Patio has done a great ride to get up to this group. Nelson is coming back. The young hope for the future of the Novo My team. Nico Verhoeven is having a great day today. He's been in and out of the lead group as well. And they're on. So again, a big breakaway coming back together in the 91st Paris-Roubaix. So many riders feel they have a chance up here. And Museo, well, he's hardly overdone the power at the front. He's on the lead at the moment, but he's keeping the pace at tempo. He's probably waiting till we come to the last 10 or 15 kilometres, where it seems all of the riders make their move over these past few years. Marc Madio has won twice from the same position. Duclos Lazalla's gone there a year ago. And you may remember too, a few years back, when the champion of Belgium, Eric van der Aarde, did a similar move to win the race. And that was back in 1987. If you want some bad luck stories over the last 15 kilometres, well, Sean Kelly, twice a winner of this race, he crashed there and broke his handlebars on the cobblestones. Kelly is having trouble today, the grand old man of world cycling, in his 17th season. His gears have fallen off and is in big trouble at the back of the race. So much luck required, and yet I once remember talking to Roger de Vlaming, the rider they used to call the Giton, the Gypsy, who won this race in 72, 74, 75 and 77. He never had a problem in 11 Paris-Roubaix until he punctured in the 11th event, and then he thought it was time to abandon the race. And there was the composition of this lead group, as it's reformed at the front, and the tempo, as you can see, with the coming back of that small group, has eased off a little bit. Time for the big boys to rethink their tactics. Marc Sergeant setting the pace. Now it's Yohave Museo, Duclos Lazalle. All of France riveted on their seats now, seeing the grand old man come back up into this lead group, when it seemed earlier, when they announced he crashed at Troisville with a puncture. It was a long chase too to rejoin the back of the field. When he got there, he found that most of the favourites had gone. Well, you can see the problems if it had been a big bunch coming down these narrow roads. You have to be so strong to ride near the front and stay out of the way of the likely falls and punctures and delays caused in the centre of the main field. And although you now see a projection of a small group of riders, you have to appreciate the strength of these favoured riders to hold their position at the head of affairs just to be in the lead group of the day. It takes an awful lot of hard riding. It's no good riding along in Paris-Roubaix, 40 riders down having a chat waiting for the end. You've got to be strong enough to stay near the front as soon as you arrive on the first stretch of cobblestones at Troisville after some 63 miles covered. Yates has put himself into this breakaway with good solid riding today. He had terrible bad luck last year. He was in the breakaway when he punctured in the forest of Arenberg. He finally came back to finish 13th. It could have been such a better finish for him, for the Motorola team as well. There's the time gap now, back to the next group, 50 seconds. And Hoyedonk taking a drink. And Van Itterbeek, who's tried one move, sitting now at the back and waiting to see what might come his way. Frédéric Moncassin also sitting there at the back. New team for him this year, and he seems to be riding a much better season. And Van Itterbeek's gone again with the gap at 33 seconds to the next group on the road. But they're not giving him his head this time. That's Olaf Ludwig, who's taken up the chase and got him. And Ludwig just anxious to contain the race. Ludwig, not the great sprinter that perhaps Museo is. He'd be delighted too to see the going of Cipollini earlier. but Ludwig can produce a great sprint when the race has been very, very hard. One of his ambitions when he turned professional was to win the green points jersey in the Tour de France. He's done that now, and he's done it and also been beaten by Johan Museo in a great one-on-one battle the following year for that green jersey as well. Now, Hermann Friesen trying his hand to go away. And you see, Friesen not recognised by the leaders as a likely winner, has been given his head, but in Paris-Roubaix it does produce surprise victors. And look at this, Adrie van der Poel is chasing him down again. This man is so strong today. I've never seen Adrie ride so well for a couple of years now. I really thought last year he was finished. 35 kilometres to go, we're in Templeuve. About 22 miles. Well, Van der Poel is claiming the Cobblestones as his today, determined to win that prize. He's been on the attack ever since the counter-attack moved off in search of Christian Chauvet. "13 riders in the front." And this is Friesen. 250 metres of cobblestones here. And like all Belgians, he rides nicely, relaxed on the handlebars. If any young amateur riders are watching, by the way, when you do ride the cobblestones, you don't allow your hands to rest lightly on the handlebars. If you hit the stones wrong, it'll bounce both of your arms off the handlebars and a nasty crash will result. Believe me, I've seen it happen many times. You hold those handlebars really tightly. Handlebar control shift levers too for the gears as he changes down one. And I've noted too that Van der Poel is using a similar gear shift today, as he would do in cyclocross, of which of course he is a great exponent. "10 seconds to Van der Poel, only 20 seconds back to the group. 20 seconds is a start. 10 years a professional, Hermann Friesen came out in a big way when he finished 3rd overall in the Tour of Holland, winning a stage. Probably his biggest victory would be a stage in the Tour de France, which came back in 1987, and a win in Ghent-Wevelgem, which is a semi-classic in 1990, and a runner-up spot in the Tour of Flanders back in 1989. But he does like riding Paris-Roubaix. He's finished 7th before. He's a rider they should pay more attention to. 5 sections of Pave left. The race is running down to its big showdown now, and there's still a lot of riders who are going to fancy the chances here. Not least Adrie van der Poel, although I have to say he does seem to be pouring out an awful lot of energy and going nowhere. It could be he's going to get up to Friesen. He did it when he chased down Van Itterbeek, and then as we saw, he almost waited for the group to come back in the end. And there's that 7th place I was telling you about. He came in 1989 for Hermann Friesen. And up comes Van der Poel again. A man possessed today. I wonder if father-in-law Raymond Poulidor is watching it. Raymond Poulidor never rode a good Paris-Roubaix. Now again, Van der Poel has chased him down. He's scored points on the cobblestones and he's eased up. Exactly the same as he did when he caught Van Itterbeek. It'll be interesting to see now if the gap closes down quickly from the chase group. But normally, if you are interested in staying away, Van der Poel would have sailed straight through on Hermann Friesen, give him a tap and said let's go for it. Instead he's taken his wheel. Now he's starting to go through. Both riders are at the limit, it seems to me here, because this race has gone so quick today. It's averaging in excess of 42 kilometres an hour, but at times we've seen speeds recorded on the flat roads of up to 57 kilometres an hour. It won't be the fastest race. The record holder, by the way, is Peter Post, the team manager of the Novo My team. and that won't be beaten today. 45 kilometres an hour that was, which is 27 miles an hour. And that day the wind was helping them all the way to the finish. Let's have a look down the road from the helicopter. The helicopter pilot has the best seat in Paris-Roubaix, that's for sure. 45 seconds the gap. As we again zip over the main autoroute, the freeway that runs between Paris, Lille and Brussels. Not to be recommended. Olaf Ludwig, who's brought a new lease of life to the German telecom team this year. A team that struggled to gain recognition, but now they've got Olaf Ludwig on the squad. Well, he really is the man to win them the classics. Van Hooijdonk, there he is having his lunch. Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, last year's winner, must be feeling very pleased with his ride so far today. And you can see the holes in his shorts because of the crash he had at the start of the Cobblestones. This looks like Dirk de Wolf coming up. It is Marc Sergeant. Massimo Girotto, 31 kilometres to go at Louville. Sean Yates, his face blackened by the dust, but still very much in the thick of this action. Benjamin van Itterbeek is there. And that was Hendrik Redant, Van Itterbeek's more illustrious teammate, who's also tapped on. He's come right through the field. That's been a great chase by Redant. So there are still messengers coming across from the remnants of the main field. Whether they spent too much effort to bridge the gap, they've been chasing for something like 90 minutes or more to get across to this league group. It's been a very difficult ride indeed. Redant was the rider when Marc Madio won, who so nearly won, because he punctured when he was in the lead by 30 seconds with something like 10 kilometres to go. And Madio was the first rider to sail past him and went on to victory. You won't forget that. Still the Belgian-Dutch tandem of Herman Frison. No wins for him last year at all. And Adrie van der Poel. Still only a few seconds in it. Well, the only stage win for Van der Poel last year that I can recall was the second stage of the Kellogg's Tour of Britain. That was a photo finish, but he got it, and he finished second overall in the race, rather, as well. These two seem to have settled down nicely now. Van der Poel anxious to work with him. Remember, as this race approaches the finish, there are about 32 kilometres to go, about 20 miles. They're going to gain in confidence as we look down the road to see if the gap is very much there, and indeed it is. And there's a lot of work to be done now. This is a superb move. Van der Poel may have at last read this one correctly. As he's gone clear, he's caught Herman Frison. Ludwig, who has no friends in that chase group, he's the only rider from Telecom, seems to be left to do a lot of work. I'm surprised here that the GB team, and Ludwig's had enough, he's swung off. In fact, it wasn't Ludwig, but a teammate that was setting the pace at the front, because that rider who's come up now is Rolf Aldag, so he came across with that group that contained Redant, and so in fact Ludwig does have a teammate up here. And there's the speed at the moment, just short of 50 kilometres an hour, some 30 miles an hour. Dirk de Wolf won Liège-Bastogne-Liège last year, on the left of our picture, just peeping in the Gatorade colours. Gianni Bugno, by the way, not here today. And a look over his shoulder. Van der Poel must be feeling very pleased with what he sees down the road. Not a lot, just the cars, that's a good sign. The commissaires have let in plenty of following cars, now the gap is growing. And judging by the speed of the leaders, very much on a par with that chase group. If anything, they might be going further ahead. Rolf Aldag driving along, not thinking of victory for himself, but knowing that if he can bring back these two leaders, he could well be handing victory to his team leader Olaf Ludwig. Ludwig, only in his 4th season as a professional. And there's the gap, 28 seconds. It's looking extremely promising now. Time is running out for the chase group. I'm surprised that Museo is allowing so much lead here, because they still have some trump cards in that chase group. They could play the double. They've got Ballerini and Museo, one for the sprint, one for the long attack. Ballerini seemingly riding on the form he had 2 years ago. He had a rather poor season last year with no victories at all. But the previous year he finished 5th in Paris-Roubaix, 3rd in the Tour of Lombardy, won a stage of the Tour of Italy, 8th in the Tour of Flanders, and finally rounded it up 12th in the World Cup. In the World Championship rather. Seaswang, 1500 meters. Sector 5A. That means we've got a double sector here. We'll be on 5B shortly after we go through a small stretch of tarmac road. Well, if nothing else, Adrie van der Poel will continue to build his rather convincing lead in the cobblestone competition. The first 3 riders score points. And Rolf Aldag is doing a terrific job here as a faithful domestique. It's pretty plain now that nobody else is going to get up to these leaders. Anybody that missed the express train that took off at Valenciennes heading for the Forest of Arlenberg, I think, apart from Duclos Lazel and that small group that since joined, have now missed the boat. And it looks as though Van der Poel is riding a little bit too well over these cobblestones. He's causing some pain now to Frison. No, Frison was dropping back, I think, so he could see the stones himself and watch out for the big holes that occasionally appear between them. You've got to ride your own race over the cobbles. You can't follow the wheel of the man in front. Superb piece of riding here by Aldag. And Johan Museo is quite clearly saying thank you very much. Sitting there in the slipstream. He's over to the far right of the picture now. Well, the crowd has found this bend one of the key bends. Many of them having transferred from the forest by car. Sometimes a problem to get through the traffic jams, but they're here anyway. 16 seconds, so this fine riding by Aldag is now causing the gap to close down. And just look how the break also is spread eagle now by the fine pacemaking. Oh, and it's Ballerini who's causing the pain. Duclos Lazel trying to grab his wheel. Franco Ballerini, it had to come from the MGGB boys, it had to. Because one's the stayer, that's the man who will go for the long one, and that's Ballerini. Museo is the one they'd save for the sprinter. Ballerini is gone, and Duclos Lazel has read it well. Where does this old man of French cycling find it from? He's fought all day to join the leaders. He's up there, and now he's determined. It can only be because he's last year's winner. He's inspired beyond belief. Last year's winner, racing on French soil. Well, not quite soil either, stones. Ballerini has been riding so well this year. And just look at this. He's coming right up to our camera. Oh, he's coming right up to the 2 leaders. My goodness me, he's on them. He's gone straight by them. And so too has Duclos Lazel, and Van der Poel has realised it. Frison wants to know if there's any more coming, and there isn't. This is a superb move now. And I think that Van der Poel can't get on the train. Ballerini is still content to make the running. Duclos Lazel is going with him. Well, we're approximately 19 miles from the finish here. It's still a long way to go, but this has gone so quickly off the group. And one has to ask, is it the adrenaline that has caused Duclos Lazel to catch the wheel of Ballerini? Because surely this man hasn't got the legs today. The French said he was their favourites, but I thought that was just a little bit of nepotism. There we saw 25 kilometres to go, so it's just over 15 miles from the finish. Little signal there from Ballerini, and I think it was to call Duclos Lazel through, but he's not going. 15 miles from the finish. Crucial point to put home the attack. They split that chase group up behind. Van der Poel has gone back, so too has Frison. I don't know if our French cameras now, because they're going to be a little bit excited by this breakaway, will show us the chase, but they have the helicopter, and there it is. It's reduced to 4 men. Van der Poel is still in there. Looking down, I'm afraid to say that Sean Yates has gone. I'm sorry about that, because Sean is such a good bike rider, deserves a result in this race. So they might bring these back. We could have 6 leaders very shortly. Now, a chance to see the sloping top tube there on Franco Ballerini's frame. Now that frame was specially made, sprayed and built only 24 hours before the start of Paris-Roubaix, because Ballerini decided to try out one of these soft ride suspensions, extensions rather, on his bike, and because it altered his riding position and made his handlebars too high, he foamed Milan, and he had a bike made with a sloping top tube so he would reform in the position which he always rides in. And that machine only arrived 24 hours before the start of Paris-Roubaix. So he's getting a softer ride over the cobbles than most. But of course Duclos-Lassalle has the same forks on, although they're slightly lighter this year than the ones he used last year to victory. And of course, after Duclos-Lassalle won last year using suspension type of front forks, you can imagine this year half the field seems to be riding them. So just as triathlons accelerated the use of those triathlon-shaped handlebars, which Greg LeMond rode to victory in the Tour de France a few years back, so the mountain bike scene now producing for the road bike scene the suspension on the forks and the handlebar extension. Well, the sport isn't afraid to learn, that's for sure. They might learn a lesson here from 2 riders who've attacked. Ballerini and Duclos-Lassalle. The rider in 3rd position is Museo. He certainly will offer nothing in the chase down. Van Hooijdonk is going to be the rider who'll miss out if he's not careful. He's setting the pace at the far right of our picture. And surely Van der Poel here at the back hasn't got much left in those legs now. He's been attacking at every opportunity, and he was right there. He had the chance to go with this group. His legs wouldn't respond when they went by him. Empty roads as we go back up to the leaders. I'm just wondering if Duclos-Lassalle has done everything to get into this lead group, and he's got nothing left, and Ballerini should be assessing this now. Ballerini remains the favourite to win if this group doesn't come. Ludwig is there, trying to give a helping hand to Edwig van Hooijdonk. Failed to win the Tour of Flanders for a 3rd time this year. Instead, that went to Johan Museo in the sprint finish from Frans Maassen, Van Hooijdonk's teammate. And northern France resplendent in spring sunshine as the Paris-Roubaix comes down to its final stages. 2 riders now have thrown down the gauntlet. Sectors of the cobblestones coming to an end now. Just 4 stretches left to go. They're not too long, but they are bad. This one at Vanahen is only 700 metres. There's the chase group: Ludwig, Museo, Van Hooijdonk, Van der Poel. 2 Belgians, a German and a Dutchman chasing down an Italian and a Frenchman. And you can't get much more international than that. Van der Poel, who's scored well so far, doesn't seem to be in the points this time. The first 3 riders out of the cobble section get the points. There are 2 in the lead, of course. And the big lanky figure there of Van Hooijdonk, who's going to have to do something and do it quickly if he's going to give Jan Roos the classic victory for the new word perfect team. Turned professional at the end of the 1986 season, Van Hooijdonk, and he popped in with a 5th place in Paris-Roubaix, and everybody said after that he would win. Came back to Paris-Roubaix in '89 and finished 3rd, and he was 3rd again in 1990. He's always ridden well in this race, and now here he is again in at the kill once more. dust being kicked up by the motor cars and the motorbikes is most unpleasant for the eyes of the riders. But at least it could be worse, because these are spring conditions, not the mud we've become accustomed to over the many years of Paris-Roubaix. In fact, many of the journalists at the start this morning were almost on their knees praying for rain. They wanted a tough race. They couldn't have seen a much better one. There's no lucky winner of this race today, with the favourites all coming to the fore and showing us just why they have been nominated as race favourites for Paris-Roubaix. They've all ridden a splendid race. They've given everything. Cipollini, sadly taken out by bad luck, is now retired, by the way. That's the latest information. He's climbed off. So too has Greg LeMond. So too has Sean Kelly. Museo sitting at the back. He's in such a strong position now. His teammates up front. He's confident his teammate can take care of Duclos-Lassalle. He's sitting at the back of the chase group, but these four catch up with the front two. Museo will be equally confident he can finish this race off in the sprint. Life is rosy now for the Italian team, despite the loss of Cipollini earlier. At one stage today they had 7 of their 8 men up in this front group. It does appear that Van der Poel has had it. He's now dreaming of the showers at Roubaix, which is the most welcome sight to these riders. 20 seconds. It's still not a winning gap by any means. But Duclos-Lassalle has found the legs from somewhere. He's digging deep. He's starting to work. So the little Frenchman again risen to the occasion for his new sponsors this year, GAN, the Assurance Company, and hopefully he can repeat his feat of a year ago, but he must feel surely the odds are against that. This is a nasty stretch of cobbles now. "12 miles to go." And again Duclos-Lassalle has projected himself into the front group. In his long career, the Frenchman has won 62 races. The 63rd would make him feel rather pleased. Still around about 20 seconds, but they're not getting any closer, that's for sure. Probably hear the bikes bouncing over the cobblestones here. Forks taking the full force of the shock on the front of Duclos' bike, while the extension is doing likewise on the machine of Ballerini. Duclos, one of those lovely men of world cycling, thought his career was over back in 1984, I think it was, when he literally shot himself in the hand while out hunting. He thought that would be the end of his career, but he came back. I remember him winning his first Paris-Roubaix, no, his first Paris-Nice rather, back in 1980, that stage race that runs down from Paris to Nice in the springtime in early March. He won it for the first time in the time trial up the Col d'Ez, and he rushed back into the press room to watch it on television. He cheered himself along as he watched himself ride to victory on a recording. Marvellous character, very, very popular with the French. He's not a great climber, yet he's led the King of the Mountains competition in the Tour de France. He arrived at his hometown of Pave, down on the edge of the Pyrenees, wearing the leader's polka dot jersey, and the crowd cheered him all the way, and he laughed because he knew once the big mountains come he would lose that lead. But all of this has endeared him to the heart of the French crowd. Second place would do them today. They've seen him win the race a year ago after 2 second places before that, and now he's just 10 miles from the finish. Can he hold off the race behind? Ballerini is the man dictating the pace, the man on form, and he is, to say the least, confident today. He's not even looking for any help from Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle. And the gap has opened, all thanks to the pacemaking here at Ballerini. 44 seconds. I'm pretty certain that Van der Poel is shot at the back. Here he is. but maybe not so Ludwig or Van Hooijdonk. But how long can they gamble here? They'll be very worried about the presence of Museo, because they know his finish is better than them both put together. And I wonder what Museo is thinking as well, because he really wanted to win Paris-Roubaix. He's handicapped now, he can't chase down these two leaders with his teammate up there. I think one of the greatest sounds in the world, there are two. There's the finish of the Tour de France on the Champs-Élysées, which must be absolutely wonderful to the riders who finally make those sacred cobblestones. And then there are the other sacred cobblestones of Paris-Roubaix, when you come into the stadium and the crowd give their roar of approval. 2 sectors left, just 4 kilometres, 2.5 miles. Pave left. It's all very, very possible now. Ballerini knows it. Surprisingly, we haven't seen his team manager come up at all. Neither the team manager of Roger Leger, because the gap has not grown to 1 minute. And the rules say until it is 1 minute, we won't see the team cars of these two riders up behind them. And I bet you Leger and Lefebvre would love to just say something now to these two riders, even if it's only a word of encouragement, like, I think you can do it. Carrefour de l'Arbre. Cobblestones are running out. And it's on the next left-hand bend coming up, where Jonathan Bowyer once made a spectacular crash and flew off into the ditch. Jonathan Bowyer. And it was just there where John just went sailing off and out of our camera to the left. I bet you Jonathan's watching the pictures today and thinking, yes, and it hurt as well. The riders today choosing the right-hand side. No puddles, no holes, just a nice little bit of rough grassland without the grass. Ballerini, so confident he doesn't give any care at all as to the location of Duclos-Lassalle. But why doesn't he attack him? Why doesn't he coax him through and jump in? Sorry about the picture breakup, but I'm sure you want to stay with these pictures. They're magnificent. There's a gap opening. Ballerini is turning the screw now, and Duclos-Lassalle is going to have to find something special. I'd love to see the face of Lassalle, but the new rules following bicycle races for television is we can't go too close, although our cameraman can't resist the shot. He's gone right up alongside him, and there's the face of Duclos-Lassalle. His hair is hardly out of place, he's just sitting there, he's concentrating on the back wheel of Ballerini. He knows if I can just hold for a few more yards, these cobblestones will be behind us. And you know, if Ballerini doesn't dump Lassalle quickly, he gets onto the smooth roads, he won't drop him. Well, Ballerini must feel in his best condition ever today, because he's not trying to get rid of Duclos-Lassalle. 1 minute and 3 seconds. This surely now is the winning move. Except Duclos won't be watching television right now. He won't know the gap is 63 seconds, and nobody can tell him just yet because the roads are too narrow. And I wonder if Ballerini would understand French as well. He's riding with so much confidence, Ballerini. He feels he's got this race won today, that's for sure. And he might have. See the holes there more clearly now on the shorts of Gilbert. Duclos-Lassalle went down with a bang when he punctured near Trois-Villes on the first sector of cobbles. He spent the next hour trying to get back into this race. Is he back into it now? He's gone with the big attack of the day. Well, this is the 15th time that Duclos-Lassalle has headed towards Roubaix, and it will have hurt certainly as much as any of the others, if not more. But the gap continues to go up. 1 minute and 11 seconds now, and Ballerini has failed to shake off the Frenchman on the cobbled roads, and I doubt very much he'll be able to do it on the smooth ones. And still Duclos slips it up a gear, but doesn't offer to contribute to any of the pace.
And Paris-Roubaix has lost none of its popularity over the years. If anything, there are more people watching this race today than for a long time. And the final shaking for Duclos-Lassalle. I must say I can't understand why, with over a minute now, Ballerini doesn't insist that Duclos-Lassalle does some of the pacemaking. He doesn't need to do this. These are the four chasers. The impetus has gone here. Ludwig sitting at the back, planning perhaps a third place finish because he's a good finisher. He'll have to take on Museo though. He's going to be very confident when he gets to the track at Roubaix. Van der Poel is at the front, but there's no fire in him anymore. These are the riders now who are dictating the Paris-Roubaix 1993. The 91st time since the race began back in 1896. The last Italian rider to win this was Francesco Moser, when he got 3 in a row between 78 and 79 and 80. And now, look at this, Duclos-Lassalle has taken over at the front. One section of Pave left, just about 2 kilometres. And so the message has got through. Ballerini, not too happy with the speed, has gone straight back into it and put his head down again. Oh, and every time Ballerini accelerates, that hurts. Ballerini, who's come back to his old form, 7th in Milan-San Remo this year, then 6th in the Tour of Flanders. A win today, and I think he'll find himself as the new leader in the World Cup competition. What a superb team the GBMG team is this year. They've taken on board Museo, and look at this, Ballerini wants now to bring forward Duclos-Lassalle, and he comes. The MG boys have such a strong team this year. They dominated Ghent-Wevelgem last week when they projected Mario Cipollini as the winner, and the Tour of Flanders where it was Johan Museo, and now they're looking set to win Paris-Roubaix with Ballerini. Still Ballerini setting the pace, but a little more urgency now from Gilbert. He has to fight though, doesn't he, just to get past those wheels of Ballerini. Scherenga, 14 kilometres from the line. 7 or 8 miles to go. Well, I really expected Ballerini to shed Duclos-Lassalle, but he's hung there like glue. And I don't think he's going to drop him now, because if he was feeling bad, he wouldn't be sharing the pace with Ballerini. So I would say that Duclos-Lassalle has made something of a recovery, because now he's looking around rather than just grimace and hold the wheel of Ballerini. He's watching and looking. That's the sign of a man who's not beaten yet. And the gap, a minute 44, the race behind is over. It's all for third place. Well, this is a superb race. It has been a superb race. It's projected 2 of the world's most famous bike riders at the moment, in Ballerini and Duclos-Lassalle. We're now in the little villages that abound as we head towards Roubaix. It's very much an industrial area, this. It's produced many good bike riders, like the World Pursuit champion Alain Bondu of France, who has been placed in Paris-Roubaix. And Duclos now happy to do a bit and bit, or one-on-one. Gilbert, 39, in August, taking on Franco Ballerini. His birthday comes in December, when he will be 29.
and they're still turning out speeds of 55 kilometres an hour at this stage of Paris-Roubaix. The overall average though is around about 42 kilometres an hour. And the gap continues to climb, so the spirit is gone now from the four chasers. They've passed through that psychological point. They know that they're going to have to concentrate on third place. Level railway crossing we've just come over there. I've seen that stop a few riders in Paris-Roubaix over the years gone by, but not so today. The two leaders won't have to worry about that. Well, Gilbert has kept this one a big secret all season. No indication he had this sort of form. He's had no team to support him. They had a tremendous stretch of bad luck very early on in this race, including Gilbert himself. Jean-Claude Colotti, who rode so well last year on the Gann team, he's still recovering from a fairly bad crash after he hit the parked car that was so carelessly left just after the finishing line in Milan-San Remo, so his condition wasn't for a good ride in Paris-Roubaix today, although he's still in the race. Breakaway of 20, which came together when Duclos-Lassalle brought up a group of 7, and then a small group joined them, including Hendrik Redant, Capio and Aldag, and then the bomb exploded and that breakaway just spread over the cobblestones of northern France, and from that came the extension of these two riders, the grand old man of world cycling and Franco Ballerini, who continues the Italian Renaissance. The race director's cars going past, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's not the car in which Bernard Hinault is sitting in the back seat. He won the Paris-Roubaix in 1981 when France were having a very thin time of it, because he was the first winner in 1981 since Lewis and Bobet back in the 50s, 1956 it was. Now a message from the team manager, Patrick Lefebvre, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's saying, for goodness sake, ease back a little bit. The final stretch of Pave coming up. So if one team manager is up there, the second one must have a word as well. This is Roger Leger from Gann with a message for Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle. It'll be something like, at worst you're going to be second, Gilbert, why not try for the win? There's no way now that anybody else will catch these two, and maybe that's what Leger is saying. He'll say, don't panic, take your time, because there's nobody coming back to you. You've only got to concern yourself with the Italian, but that really is rather a big concern. Ballerini has projected himself over these last few miles as the man to beat. He's tremendously strong. Roger Leger, the manager of Gann, which was formerly the Z team, a rider in the Tour de France, although not one of great distinction some years ago. But he's turned out to be an extremely astute manager. Of course, all of these people now, having seen the race live on television, are rushing out of their houses on the farms, knowing that a Frenchman is in with a shout again of winning Paris-Roubaix. There's only been 8 French victories since the war. They don't win too many of their own classic, and they may not win this one because Ballerini is looking too good. The gap goes up to 2 minutes 12 seconds. Ballerini has done most of that opening up of the gap. Seeking the little bit of smooth road that seems to exist on this final stretch of cobblestones. On the left, and then over to the right, and back to the left, and oh dear me, Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle almost got into the lead then, but he put his brakes on rather quickly and made sure Ballerini got first slot. And now the chase group comes on to the final section of Cobblestones, with Van der Poel still sitting at the back. He played his cards midway through this race when he appeared to be the Superman of the day, but he'll certainly run out as the winner of the champion of the Pave, which is also a cobblestone, like the winner will receive as well. One of the great symbols of world cycling that every cyclist would like to have on his sideboard, but many of them never will, like Miguel Indurain or Gianni Bugno, because they don't seem to enjoy this race at all. Moto 1, by the way, which is our camera on the motorcycle number 1, always follows the leaders on the road. That's how we know where we are. Moto 2 normally follows the chase group, and Moto 3 picks up the bits at the back. And there's Leger. Well, I can't quite hear what Roger Leger is saying to Gilbert. He may have been describing the final few kilometres into the finish, but I think Gilbert, better than anybody, knows that, having ridden this race 15 times. Ballerini wants him to come through. He may not understand what Leger is saying. He may have realised too that Gilbert is not cooked at all, and he's going to want to try him out now and just see how much is left in those legs. It's getting a rather nervous time for Ballerini. I feel the Italian should have gone for the long one. With about 15 kilometres to go, he should have tried to have rid himself of Duclos-Lassalle. I often say, when you see the finishing banner, you come back to life even when you're dead. Oh, and there's trouble for Sean Yates. Oh, that is sad. Sean Yates was in that chasing group just behind the 4. He's got himself a rear wheel puncture. And mechanic Neil pushing him back into the race. Yates has had a marvellous day today in Paris-Roubaix, and he's cheered away by some of the locals. This is Moto 2, back with the second group. Ludwig lying off the back, just stalking the other 3, waiting for the finish now, I think. They know that these 2 have flown, that they won't be seen again today till we get down to the finish at Roubaix. Franco Ballerini first came into view when he finished 25th in the Tour of Lombardy, the Italian Classic, back in 1986, the year in fact he turned professional. And then we really noticed him, and he had a marvellous season in 1990 when he finished 5th in the Dutch Amstel Gold Race, 3rd in Ghent-Wevelgem, 10th in the Tour of Flanders, 19th in Paris-Roubaix. Then he won Paris-Brussels and the Grand Prix of the Americas, finished 4th in the World Cup. Then we knew we had a champion in the making. But he'd give all of those now for his first victory in Paris-Roubaix today. The crowd gets thicker as we head towards the streets of Roubaix. And Duclos-Lassalle has got the good position, 2nd place. A lot of road racing cyclists do not like the finish on the velodromes. They're not used to riding on the bank tracks, you know. I'm not sure whether Ballerini is one such rider. It's 3 kilometres now, just inside 2 miles to the finish. Ballerini's manoeuvred Duclos-Lassalle into the lead. And the happy face there of Jean-Marie Leblanc, former rider of the Tour de France, and more importantly the director of this race and the Tour de France now. A good rider, a great journalist, and a very, very good organiser indeed. He'll be very happy with this promotion. A Frenchman at the front and an Italian favourite. Seen the other favourites try their best and fall by the wayside. Can't be unhappy about this year's Paris-Roubaix. Wim Jeremias is the chief commissaire, a Dutchman who's seen most of the world's major races, standing alongside him. Former team manager of the Dutch Amateur Cycling Federation. Listen to the shouts now. I can tell you there's not one shout for Ballerini. They're all for their favourite, Duclos-Lassalle. The adrenaline will be pouring through him now. His arms will be tingling. He'll be saying, can I do it just one more time? The roads, as always, brilliantly shut down for the arrival of this race. Not a car parked on them. nervous moments now, and in fact I think Ballerini is trying desperately to manoeuvre Duclos past him. He's done it. Now this is where Duclos-Lassalle must be careful, because if the Italian gets into the stadium in second place, it's all finished for sure. Well, we even call this little stretch of cobblestones a rough piece of road. It's only 200 metres, it's virtually over. A couple of tram lines, and we're heading down towards the right turn into the main road that will take us into the stadium. And Duclos-Lassalle is in for the kill again. Mr. Paris-Roubaix, twice finished second. He's won it, he's finished fourth, he's ridden it 15 times. He must go to sleep shaking at night after the journey across the cobblestones. The road down to the station, the Rue de la Gare. La Pascale, they call this race the Easter race. It's happening this year on Easter Sunday. It isn't always the case. What a way for the French to celebrate Easter now if Duclos-Lassalle can do what really everybody to a man is thinking is impossible. You can't get a bet in the press room on Duclos-Lassalle, it's all on Ballerini. And he's got him into the lead. Ballerini is getting the advantage. He's working smoothly now to keep Duclos-Lassalle out in front. All the crowds out of the French cafes where they've been watching this on television. The kite in the sky, 1 kilometre to go now. That is to the entrance of the stadium, not to the finishing line when you finish on the stadium. They still have 1.5 laps of the velodrome to follow. And the stadium is as full as I have ever seen it. Totally packed out. Duclos has seen the kite. So too, for that matter, as Ballerini. Ballerini wants Duclos to come and do a relay. I doubt whether he'll do it now. Something like 700 metres to the stadium, and Duclos says, no thanks, I'm happy here. He knows with a buffer of over 2 minutes they're not going to pull him back, so there's room for finesse. We could see the slowing down of this chase of these two riders now, and the chase closing in a little bit. Ballerini's been to Roubaix before, he knows the roads. He's made the big mistake. He's put the Frenchman in the wrong position. It's the sort of move that Belgian riders would do. But there's no Belgian in at the kill. Museo will have to try and handle Ludwig for third place. Turned right. We're now heading down towards the stadium. The next right turn will be onto the stadium. Ballerini's keeping to the far left. He knows if Duclos will attack him, he must come on one side of the road only. He's moved over to the far right now to try and force him the long way round into the stadium. Now he's going to have to make the turn in the lead. So Duclos-Lassalle has won the first battle. He's going into the stadium in the position behind, which will give him the benefit of surprise, but has he got the legs? There'll be an enormous cheer too as he enters the track. There's a marvellous big screen in the track centre. They're watching these pictures. They know that Duclos will come through in second place. The crowd will welcome them now. Ballerini will take them onto the concrete velodrome at Roubaix, giving Duclos-Lassalle the benefit of surprise now. There's no speed here. If Ballerini has got the strength, why isn't he going quicker, I must ask myself, because surely Duclos-Lassalle is finished. But you never know if he takes him to the line what he will discover. The chanting is Duclos, 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 as Lassalle sits there behind Ballerini. The bell goes for 1 lap of the track. Ballerini stays low. He should go high, surely. Why doesn't he take him high on the bank and dive off it? Ballerini is waiting for Lassalle to move. He's almost tempting him through. He's waiting to see the move come. This Italian must have some confidence. He's a cool operator, that's for sure. Down the back straight, Ballerini has looked, he's looked back, and Lassalle has gone, Duclos has gone, and he's got the lead. Ballerini still takes his slipstream. He's going to have to come in the tailwind in the home straight. Ballerini will have to move in the last 50 metres now as Duclos-Lassalle goes for goal for the second year off the final banking. Now Ballerini's coming on the left of our picture. Ballerini, but Duclos-Lassalle is holding him. Ballerini thinks he's got it, his arm is in the air.
Franco Ballerini of Italy thinks he's the first man to win it, but I would like to see the replay because I'm not so sure it was close. It was as close as the Bauer-Eddie Plankett sprint a few years back. There's no doubt in Ballerini's mind. He's won the Paris-Roubaix. His arms are in the air down the back straight at the very point where Duclos-Lassalle made his effort. Let's look at this again. You see Ballerini on the left now, he's still kicking and Duclos is hanging on, and unfortunately somebody has popped in there to obscure that shot. So it's gone to the photograph for Franco Ballerini looking across now. He's no longer quite so certain that he has won. Yes, he is. He thinks he's won it. Let's look at the picture. Well, Franco Ballerini has lost it. He's lost it. Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, who thought he'd lost it, and Ballerini doesn't know. It's not announced. He thinks he's won Paris-Roubaix. This is unbelievable. But the winner of Paris-Roubaix is Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle. There's no doubt about that now, despite the fact that Ballerini continues to celebrate. Let's watch the race for third place. They're on the track. Olaf Ludwig, Johan Museo in this chase group. Edwig van Hooijdonk is leading them on. Museo in second place. Then comes, and in fact Sean Yates has got back. What a ride by Sean Yates is in this group as well. Ludwig is there. But I think that van Hooijdonk hasn't got much hope as he leads this out. The only man that should concern Museo is Ludwig. Museo takes the wheel of Ludwig. But Ludwig, at the end of a race like this, can often finish them off, and he's going to go for gold now, as Museo is going to try and make it at least second and third for the GB boys, but he's not going to do it. Olaf Ludwig gets third today, Museo is fourth, and Van der Poel gets fifth. Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle is the winner of Paris-Roubaix, the oldest winner ever. He'd done that last year, but he's a year older this year, and the first Frenchman to defend his title since 1911. And there's the picture again that has decided Paris-Roubaix. Who would have thought we would see almost a repeat of the photo finish when Eddie Plankett beat Steve Bauer back in 1990. And so the result of this marvellous climax to Paris-Roubaix, Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, the winner in 6 hours 45 minutes and 20 seconds, beating Franco Ballerini, who really did it all wrong over those last few kilometres. Olaf Ludwig takes third place, 2 minutes and 9 seconds back. Johan Museo was fourth. Sean Yates of Motorola finishing in 8th place, the best finish by a British rider for 20 years. And Steve Bauer, by the way, riding that strange bicycle, finished a magnificent 21st, 6 minutes and 59 seconds off the pace. The other American, Nate Rees, riding for Subaru Montgomery in his first Paris-Roubaix, was a very creditable 53rd. What a marvellous Paris-Roubaix. It's lived up to its reputation this year. I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye.